Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Hagen-Botham Insurance and Financial Services.
This show focuses on sharing good news and powering the good in our community. Now here's your host, City Current CEO, Jeremy Park.
Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Hagen-Botham. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And we always love focusing on the topic of culture. That's why we're excited to have with us Michele Herlein, founder and CEO of CultureMax and author of the book, Cultural Excellence, A Leader's Guide to Strengthening the Heart of Your Organization. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Jeremy, and thank you so much for having me on the show.
Well, we're looking forward to diving into the book, but let's start with a little bit of your background, because when you talk about CultureMax and how all of this starts to build the foundation for your book, give us some background on your background.
Well, I've been fortunate enough to have a 25-year career in corporate America, working at 3 different companies. My purpose has always been to help people be the best people that God created them to be. And as my responsibilities grew in organizations and I became responsible for whole departments and systems and processes, that expanded to making sure that organizations were places that would allow people to be their best selves and bring their best selves to work. So I have worked at Bandag Incorporated. Bridgestone Americas purchased them in 2007 and moved me to Nashville in 2009. I worked with the CEO and COO of Bridgestone Americas, and we created what we called a premier place to work. And during that time, I collaborated with 12 other companies in Nashville to talk about corporate culture and what every company was doing. And I held the inaugural meeting at Bridgestone, and that's where I met the CEO of Bard's Design Solutions, where I spent the last 9 years of my corporate career as the Chief Human Resource Officer and then the Chief Administration Officer.
Tie that into CultureMax and some of the work that you're doing right now.
So in 2023, when I left corporate America, I really felt like in this season of my career and this season of my life, I still had a lot to give. I had a lot of great experiences that I had in the companies that I worked with. I learned so much about organizational culture. We had successes in implementing the methodology that I wanted to continue to share that work with HR professionals and executive leaders so they too can create great organizations for their culture.
This will carry us over into the book, but talk about the sharing of resources and information. And you've got basically a mastermind that you've created that ties into culture.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm doing now is taking that whole concept of the Culture Club and have created a mastermind group. Right now it is for heads of HR, so CHRO, heads of HR, heads of talent, and large organizations. And we are getting together once a month virtually to talk about how to create great organizational cultures. And I go through the chapters of the book because the book truly is a leader's guide. It is intended to be a guide for how to create great organizational cultures, even with downloadable worksheets and activities so that people aren't just reading about it, they're learning about it. And in the Culture Club, it's an experience where I use the methodology in the book to teach about creating great cultures, but also use the experiences and the availability of the members of the Culture Club so they can also learn from each other.
I think that's the power of this. Is it's one thing to talk about it in theory, but it's another in practice, and then to put it into practice and know that it works. And so this all ties to the conversation around the book. Let's go ahead and dive into, once again, the book is Cultural Excellence, A Leader's Guide to Strengthening the Heart of Your Organization. So give us a little background on what led you to write the book.
So as I said, I spent 25 years in corporate America, and I saw firsthand how much of our lives are spent in the workplace. We spend more time at work than we do with our own families. And I've always believed, as I said, that I want to give back and help others and help organizations be the best that they can be. And so what I witnessed was, in most cases, the friends and the colleagues and the people I were talking to, their workplaces depleted them instead of filled them up. And I don't believe it needs to be that way. I've witnessed firsthand that it doesn't. the time and the energy you give at work and to your organization should be something that fills you up and makes you feel valued, because that energy spills back over into your family and your communities. But unfortunately, I think that the opposite occurs too often than not. And so, what I want to do is be a source of how to create organizations that motivate and fill people up and help them feel valued, so that they in turn can go back to their families and their communities and spill that positive energy into the world. So it's my way of helping humanity. But I found in the companies that I've worked for that it's also really good business, because we've gotten really great financial results, and other people metrics have really turned around by applying this methodology that I've written about in the book.
So you've already alluded to the practical application, but go ahead and talk about how the book is laid out. Give us the structure and the flow, and then we'll dive into some of the nuances.
So it is a step-by-step process, and I talk a lot about what I call horizontal alignment and then vertical alignment. So horizontal alignment is around getting the executive team and anyone who has the responsibility of managing other people in the organization aligned around the culture. What I've seen happen too often is that a CEO has a vision of what they want to create, but they have people on their team that don't believe in it or don't want to go on that journey with them. And so it never happens, because it divides the company because different executives are not buying into the direction. As a matter of fact, in a lot of the CEOs that I've interviewed, there is one thing in common when I ask them about their cultural transformation and if there is anything that they would do differently. And to a T, everyone said that if someone on my executive team was not on board with the cultural and strategic direction that I wanted to go, I would give them a shorter amount of time. I would give them the time to understand and make the decision to get on board. But if they weren't on board, then we would have to part ways sooner. And most of the CEOs waited 2 years or 3 years, and that delayed the progress in the organization that they wanted to create.
Give us an idea of how culture is defined, especially around that, because I think in some cases it's like, okay, it's the words on the wall, it's the core values, it's the ethos, it's how we want to behave and treat each other and treat our customers, and it's those words. But when you talk about getting alignment and the gut feeling, like, are you on board? Are you not? In other words, how do you define, how do you kind of lay out culture so that you can make those sort of leadership decisions?
Well, and that is a good question. And that is one of my goals, is that culture becomes part of the DNA of the organization, not just words on a wall. And so in the book, I define culture as the behavior of the leaders. And that's why it comes back to that horizontal alignment of leaders. And then the behaviors that leaders tolerate. And that's very important as well, because you can say that you believe in certain values which result in certain behaviors, but if you tolerate people acting in ways that are alternative to those what you're saying you want, that builds cynicism instead of collaboration and unity.
Carry
So
that into that
define.
vertical alignment then, in terms of how that ties in, just like you're talking about the horizontal, but also the vertical then.
Yes, and then the vertical, you need to get the leaders and anyone responsible for management on board. And then the vertical alignment is aligning all the rest of your employees and your systems and your processes, because they have to, the way you reward people, the way you develop people, the way you communicate, the way decisions are made, even the way you structure the organization and set up your processes, have to all be aligned around the culture you have designed in order to make it really become part of the DNA of your organization.
Give us a teaser, maybe one or two around. You can't obviously pick a favorite chapter because it's like trying to pick your favorite,
Yeah.
but around some of the popular chapters and topics that you want to highlight as a nice little teaser. So give us a couple of teasers for the takeaways and the major chapters for the book.
So again, it follows that. So the first part of it is about horizontal alignment, which the first chapter is about diagnosing your culture. So see where you are today, and then from that point, how do you want to evolve it? And then it goes into aligning your executive team. And then one of my favorites is the next chapter is about aligning your managers. And I call them the mighty middle. And I think they're such an important part of the organization because they are not usually in the room when the strategic direction is set. They're usually not in the room when big decisions are made, but they are the face of the organization to the majority of the employees. So they need to have the information. They need to understand the direction you're going. They need to understand changes that might be implemented because employees will come to them and ask questions, and they're the ones who have to be reinforcing what is happening in the company to the people so that people are not wasting time and energy trying to figure out what's going on or talking about what's going on. They have real information about what is going on.
How did the process of writing the book really help redefine and strengthen your efforts around culture?
One, I have a great team at Forbes that really helped and supported me in this process because I also wanted to make sure that the stories I was telling and the process that was laying out was important and would matter to people. And the process of writing and getting feedback from the editors and help with all of that really strengthened that this is a message that really needs to be out into the world. And I'm honored to be the one that's helping make that happen.
Who is the book for? So, what's the audience for this book?
It is for HR leaders on their role and how they support other leaders in creating great organizational cultures. And it's for executive leaders and any leader who really wants to create a great environment for their department, for their part of the organization or for their entire organization.
You already alluded to the Culture Club and that piece of it, but what do you hope that readers take away and what do you hope that they apply to their organization from the book?
The biggest thing is that it is hard work. So it is not, you cannot just go and offsite with your executive team and create your purpose, vision, values, and strategy. That is a starting point for it. But for those to come alive in your organization, it is kind of like exercise. So I can't go to the gym once and feel like I'm going to get healthy, or I can't eat one healthy meal and think I'm going to lose weight. In order to be healthy, we have to maintain both our exercise and our good eating habits and sleep habits. And culture development is the same thing. It is very important that you nurture it. You can establish it and create it. And when it really comes alive, it's when you create it from the top down, but when it really comes alive is when it's integrated within the whole organization and then it bubbles up from the bottom up and people are holding each other accountable to the values of the organization, to the performance of the organization. And that is when culture really comes alive.
Is there a trend or perhaps something specific that really excites you, that puts a smile on your face? And where I'm going with this is something like a VTO, volunteer time off, allowing your team to go and serve in the community and bring those experiences back, and how that purpose helps fuel them personally, professionally, even spiritually, but how that, leads to higher productivity and happiness through volunteerism, community engagement, and that piece of culture building. Is there something, like that, as a trend or something specific that is something that really excites you for where we're headed with a lot of this?
So I would say it's not one particular trend because not every organization is alike. And your employees will tell you what's important to them. So at every single organization at Bandag, Bridgestone, and Barge, we set out to create our purpose, vision, and values. In every single organization, they were different. At Bandag, we called our values the guiding principles. At Bridgestone, we called them the rules of the road. And at Barge, we called them the CARES model. So every company is unique. And when you align your leaders and then your vertical alignment with your people and your systems and processes, you'll build a mechanism for getting feedback and you'll understand what your employees need and what's important to them. So that it's more of implementing a rigorous and consistent process that you continue to create a culture where it attracts people, it keeps your people, and also then produces wildly outstanding financial results. At Bridgestone, the results were 5 times what they were when we started, and there you're talking billions of dollars. At Barge, the profits the last full year I was there were 7 times what they were when we started. So it is not only good for people where people thrive, but it's also a really good business strategy.
Talk about where we can go to get the book. So it's out now. So where do we go to get the book?
So it is available now on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and any place that you might buy a book. I'm very excited to get this out into the world and hope that you buy it and enjoy it. The other thing that I think is very important is, as I said earlier, is I wanted it to be an actionable guide. So at the end of every chapter, as I use the analogy to exercise, there is a time to exercise with a downloadable files for people to take and use in their organization so that they're not just reading about it or thinking about it. I'm encouraging people to go and do it.
We'll wrap up with website. So where can we go to learn more about CultureMax and also obviously follow you and tie it into obviously getting the book? But where do we go? Website, social media, where do we go to follow you and your efforts?
So my CultureMax website is culture-max.com. And I also have a michelleherlein.com website that is going to be released very soon. So you can go to michelleherlein.com. That will work with CultureMax, culture-max.com. And then you can find me on LinkedIn at Michele Herlein.
That makes it easy. Well, Michele, thank you for all you do to power the good. Once again, everybody, the book is Cultural Excellence, A Leader's Guide to Strengthening the Heart of Your Organization. So thank you for all you do to power the good. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I love talking to you.
Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services is proud to power the City Current Show. We're a people-first company that protects what matters most, the families, businesses, and trailblazers that keep our community going. As one of the nation's top independent insurance firms, Higginbotham is a single-source solution for business insurance, employee benefits, HR services, and personal insurance that's customized for you. We're here to serve you, the people you care about, and your community. Call 866-377-1959 or visit higginbotham.com.